Alrighty, welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Wolfe, and I will be your host today. Today we are talking about intuition and why it is so important, and we're going to be playing a couple of little games to help you work with your intuition and to give you some assignments to be able to really start developing this skill. Now, intuition is really, a lot of people seem to think that it's some kind of gift that, is only given by God and only a few select people get it. I have been a professional intuitive for about 4 years, and I never, ever, ever expected that I was going to go into this profession. But what I have realized over the course of my working with clients and myself is that intuition is not anything which is special. I mean, it is special, it's important, but it is part of being human. And basically what it is the ability to perceive subtle frequencies that normally in the course of our everyday activity we might ignore. Now, so the ability to perceive these subtle frequencies is something that you can absolutely master, and that is something that is absolutely crucial in the coming years. The reason that I do this work, about 5 years ago, I was a personal trainer, and for many years, I had been getting this deep, deep call that I needed to go further. And when I began to explore my intuition, what I realized is that it was the key to me understanding the much larger purpose that I was here to carry out. And just to back up a little bit, what I believe about this period of time, when we look at the political situation, which is wild, right? It's completely crazy. You've got all of these things coming to the surface, and it is really a kind of a scary situation if you don't have a handle on what's happening. And I don't think very many people do. But what I believe is going on right now is exactly what is spoken of in the great spiritual traditions. Christianity speaks about it as being the rapture. It's referred to as the Kali Yuga in the Mayan calendar. It's the end of the Mayan calendar. And many of these different traditions, there was a belief that at some point there would be a major shift. And what I believe is that right now we are undergoing exactly this shift into a new era. And the things that we are beginning to see right now rising to the surface, this ugliness in politics, the environmental catastrophes that are going on, the economic mess that's going on, all of this is, number one, happening to wake us up, so that we actually get knocked out of our programming and start looking around. But it is also happening because in order to clear all of this nonsense, in order to go to the next level where human beings begin to receive some of this great potential, all of the nasty stuff needs to come to the surface to be purged. And that is what I believe is happening right now. Well, what is really going on? I believe that this shift of consciousness is humans going from a state of really bestiality, operating from fear and operating from separation, to a new era, which is unity consciousness and the understanding that we are part of all, that we are part of this beautiful organism called Gaia that is undergoing her own personal development. And that we are in the middle of a shift into a new earth, which is going to mean the human race stepping into maturity and stepping into consciousness of what we do. So those are my beliefs around the question of intuition, that in order to participate in what's going on in this planet, developing our ability to um, to be able to perceive outside of our five senses is absolutely crucial. So this is the reason that I wanted to have the workshop series, and that I wanted to teach this, and I really, really enjoy doing it. So backing up a little bit, when I was a child, this is the way that my story went. I was extremely sensitive, and luckily I was put in a Montessori school so that I could pursue my own interests, and I didn't need to be, told what to do. I got to read, I got to draw, I got to be creative. And then when I was 8 years old, I was sent to a regular school. And what happened to me there is that I had been able to be as sensitive as I wanted to be, but in a big public school, it was very different. And so I got bullied, I got harassed, I had all kinds of, really nasty things happening. And so what happened to me is that I was raised, my dad was a philosophy professor, and so he was very much into logic. And so my little child's brain said, well, the reason that I'm getting into trouble is because I am feeling too much, I'm too sensitive, so I need to cut that off, and I need to be more logical and move with my brain. And that is what I did for a really long time. In fact, what I actually, at a certain point, I deliberately was ignoring my intuition because I believed that it had gotten me into so much trouble when I was a little girl. And in fact, I had situations where my guides were just screaming at me not to do certain things. But I defied it because I was like, I am not going to give in to these feelings. Feelings are weak. Emotions are weak. And I feel like in a certain sense, it was like a microcosm of what's going on the planet right now. So I think that is what happens to a lot of people. And as a result of that, we really get cut off from our sensitivity. And we are also not taught of what we are experiencing. That's the thing. So one of the things that I was going to do for this is have a slideshow and have pictures and so on, but I actually don't teach well that way. So if you guys have any questions about this, or I can illustrate it a little bit better, you definitely can go ahead and put something in the chat, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability. So what is intuition really? When I started researching for this workshop, I have a pretty clear idea, but I wanted to see how other people were talking about it. And so I went to my favorite place, YouTube, to see what they were saying. And what I found is that the definitions are awful. They're really, really, really terrible, and they're really, really, really imprecise. And so I decided that I was just going to present to you, what I believe and my understanding of what this is all about, because you can get really super confused if you start messing around on YouTube around this issue. So what we are perceiving with our five senses, right? We have these five physical senses, and we are able to perceive only a very small band of visible light. Now, the funny thing about this is that I was looking into the five senses and, what the sixth sense is and so on and so forth. And what scientists and also behaviorists are saying is that there are actually 9 and possibly up to 11 senses. So, to give you a sense of it, proprioception is one, which is the sense of where your body is in space. So we're getting a lot more refined about it, but that kind of gives you a sense of it. The mythology is that there are 5 senses. Now the researchers are saying 11. How many more senses are we going to find here? But going back to the question of visible light, we're only seeing this really, really tiny percentage of what's actually there. We can't see radio waves. We can't see electromagnetic frequencies, but they are absolutely there. And so the development of intuition is the development of the ability to begin to perceive these energies. And I'll tell you, whether or not you're aware of these energies, you are very, very much subject to that. A really good example of this is the geomagnetic storms that have been going on recently. What'll happen is that when there is solar activity, we'll get a solar wind, which comes, kind of bangs up against our atmosphere, and it can cause all kinds of geomagnetic storms. And this is where auroras come from. There's really recently on my Facebook page, I've been posting a bunch of pictures of these auroras because it really gives you a sense of just the incredible power of this. Now, people might say, oh, it's really pretty and so on, but these geomagnetic storms actually have a big effect on the entire planet. There have actually been warnings put out by various government agencies about the possibility of a geomagnetic storm wiping out all communications. I don't want to get scary about this, but that gives you a sense of how seriously this is taken. Geomagnetic storms can mess up bird migration patterns. It can mess up all kinds of telecommunications. And so I just find it kind of entertaining because then you get the people, the skeptics, coming out and saying, oh, but geomagnetic storms don't affect humans. Oh, no, 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 right? And it's just like the question of the moon, right? You have the skeptics, the scientific types, which really it's not very scientific. Here's this body very close to us. It causes the tides coming in and out, for God's sake. And yet, the skeptics say that it has no effect on human life whatsoever. Well, it doesn't really work that way. So the development of intuition is the ability to be able to begin to sense this in a way other than just receiving chaos all the time. Because unfortunately, that's really what we're receiving, is a lot of confusion, right? When there's a geomagnetic storm, a lot of people are very deeply affected by this. And the problem is that, they'll be going about their business and then suddenly the geomagnetic storm will hit and they'll get some brutal headache and they get brain fog. And they start to think that there's something wrong with them. So it is very important as citizens of a new earth to understand that we are in constant communication, we're in constant co-creation, we're constantly responding to these forces that maybe we can't see them, but they are absolutely there. So my hope is that coming out of this workshop, you'll be in a position to begin to separate out what is your intuition versus some other stuff that might be coming in. So the first thing that I'd like to do, and this is just kind of a fun little exercise to get a sense of what your primary clair is. Clair means clear. And so it's acknowledged that there are 4 primary ones. But let me just say that my experience of this is that I began with a couple of them, but what has happened is very different. I am not now developing them separately. I'm not feeling them separately. Basically, it's been kicked up to an entirely different level where I'm really not perceiving it this way, but this is a good start. So don't get ahead of yourself on this. So the exercise that we're going to do is going to identify your primary clair. That's the one that is easiest for you to work with. And that can kind of give you a doorway into developing more. So the 4 types of clairs, the main ones, are claircognizance, which is clear knowing, and that's just, you just know stuff. Clairvoyance, which is clear seeing, and those are the people, they might see auras, they might see spirits, they might see like rippling energies. It just depends, but it's just the ability to be able to have a visual sense of the energies. The third one is clairaudience. And with clairaudience, the other day in the group, somebody was talking about getting messages through songs. And that's one of the fun clairaudient things that happen. I've had many instances where I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have a song, and sometimes it's a song I haven't heard in decades, but it'll come to me and it's like a little message, which is really, really fun. But clairaudience is also phrases. It is any kind of auditory type information that you might get. There are some people who might be diagnosed as mentally ill who hear voices, and it's actually not mental illness, it is this clairaudience. And then the 4th one is clairsentience, which is feeling in your body. So let's go ahead and do this little exercise, and it'll kind of give you a general sense of your primary one, or the one that is coming forward right now. So go ahead and just close your eyes. Just breathe a couple times. And just imagine yourself at the beach. And you're standing in the sand barefoot. There's a breeze. The sun is shining down. You can hear the seagulls. You can hear the waves crashing. Now, go ahead and open your eyes and just think to yourself, okay, in the beginning of this exercise, what is the first sense that I felt? Did I feel the sun on my skin? If you did, you're probably clairsentient is the one that's coming forward. Did you hear the waves? Did you hear the seagulls? Then you would be clairaudient. If you immediately saw the sunlight, saw the rocks, saw the waves, then your clairvoyance is coming forward. And then if you just knew you were there immediately, you were just there, that's claircognizance. So whichever of the 4 felt the strongest. But let me just say that this exercise is very cool because it's also an exercise that you can use to sharpen your intuition, right? So you can just kind of play with that. And if you got all 4 of them, that's fine, you're human. And what you can do is to simply begin to develop the one that you like the most. So I'm kind of going to stop there. And I am going to ask if we've got any questions at all yet, because I just covered a whole lot. And I just want to make sure that everybody is up to speed. I don't see any questions in the chat. Do we have any other, a bunch of other people came on. Okay, good. All right. So no questions at all? Are people following me, or have I lost everybody and everybody's just given up? Okay. You're good? All right. So.
Never give up. I just wanted to say 3 just sort of simultaneously came through. So is that okay?
Well, you've been working on it for a while, so it's not really surprising.
Okay.
What was the fourth that didn't come through? I'm just curious.
I guess cognizance. I mean, although I definitely have that, in other situations, but I felt the breeze, I saw everything, I heard the waves, so.
Cool.
And,
all right, and everybody else says that they are perfectly fine. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Okay. So, so now we get to plow in a little bit further. So I just wanted to discuss the whole question of, what intuition is and what the heck we are tapping into. Now, I found this to be really fascinating, again, because I decided that I was going to do some research into intuition. And one of the things that I have actually sorry, I got completely distracted. I need to not check the chat. Anna, can you just make sure that you check the chat, because it gets me totally destabilized when I do it. Okay, so the question was, what are we tapping into? And some people refer to what we tap into when we are getting into information as the collective consciousness. Now, what I realized, because I've used that term in the past too, is that is not what we're tapping into at all. The collective consciousness, as Jung talks about and various psychologists, is actually the structures that exist in society. They are the programming. When we're born into this world, we are pure, perfect, innocent soul. And immediately, social programs come in. And the social programs are determined by your lineage, your parents, your grandparents, the society you live in, the government, the era in which you live in. That's the collective unconscious. And I would even venture so far as to say that that is the arena of the Akashic Records. If you've ever gotten an Akashic Records reading, that would be where all of the records are kept. Now, the question of what we're tapping into with intuition is something which I don't think has a really good name. The only person that I've ever found that has a good name for it is a man named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Now, he was a scientist at the beginning of the last century. He was a scientist and he was also a priest, which was a pretty unusual combination. And basically what he said is that he looked at the evolution on the planet and he said that, okay, first we got the geosphere. So this is inner life. This is non-conscious life. Then we got the biosphere. And so that is all of the things that are living. So his hypothesis was that there would be another level of evolution, and he called it the noosphere, the realm of the mind. And what he said is that the evolution that we are going through will cause this leap in consciousness where we understand our role and we have tapped into this consciousness. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot because a while ago I read a book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I have noticed a phenomena. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, but I am a compulsive ideas person. And I tend to pull ideas out, right? I'll have an idea about, just some random thing. And then a couple of years later, somebody will have developed a business around it. I don't know if you guys have ever had that experience, but it's very, very interesting. Now, what Liz Gilbert talked about in the book Big Magic is a situation that she had in which she had a book that she had plotted out in her head. And it had to do with an American who goes to Brazil, has a love affair, and there are some really, really specific things that happen. So her life got in the way, and she ended up not writing that novel. But around the time that she was thinking about the novel, she met another novelist at a conference, and they just bonded immediately. They got along really, really well. And this is somebody that Liz Gilbert had a lot of respect for. So Liz abandons the idea for the Brazilian book. And then 2 years later, she runs into the same author. And the author is very, very excited because she's about to publish a book. And Liz says, "Oh, what's the book about?" And the woman says, "It's about an American who goes to Brazil and blah, 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 blah." It's exactly the scenario. I mean, there are some specific things that are kept out. And Liz Gilbert's completely blown away. And she doesn't talk about the noosphere or human consciousness or anything like that. She basically believes that there is a bucket or like a field of ideas that you pull things from. And there are many, the TED talk that she did on this, she talks about how musicians will often get music that will come to them in an entire piece. Mozart talked about that, where the entire piece comes from to him. So what is this that we're pulling from? And I believe that it's the noosphere. I believe that it is the realm of human consciousness. And as I was looking up the noosphere, that was actually something that I did research on, believe it or not, when I was in my late teens. And what I found is that this whole concept really has not gone much further, but this is what we are tapping into. Now, the collective, see, I need to come up with a different term because I used to call it collective consciousness, but that's not correct. So the noosphere is like a big band of ideas, of information. It is the band that we pull things from with our imagination. When we're talking about being a conduit from the divine, this is where we pull the ideas from. So the ability to develop your intuition is the ability to be able to tap into there. And it contains all of the human knowledge, right, as well. So let me just see right here. Yeah. And Anna is saying that she's a creative and she downloads the full story or the melodies. And April's calling it the co-creation container. Nice. So that is what we're doing when we're working on our intuition. And that's the importance of working on it right now, is because over the next period of time, we need to step into the fullness of what human beings are actually capable of doing. And so I am calling on you all to really work on the development of these abilities, because this is what is going to equip you to be a citizen of the new earth. So let me just pause right there. Do we have any other questions? Because now we are going to go into our final discussion, and I am going to give you guys some homework. Is there anything else at all that you guys want to bring up? Okay. And my time is running pretty well too. Yep, shifting into 5D and beyond. And yeah, let me just mention this. I mean, the key thing about the question of intuition, the whole question of 5D, is that it's all a question of our perception. I was at an event of Nassim Haramein, who's a quantum physicist. And he's like a straight physicist, and his stuff is very complicated. I studied the science of it, and I was really having trouble keeping up with him. And so he's talking about all of his latest research and black holes and portals and wormholes and things like this. And so after the break, somebody raises their hand and says, "Mr. Harriman, when are we going to be ascending into 5D?" And he just kind of looked at them and he said, "It's all here. It's all here right now." And that's the thing, is all of these different dimensions, they all exist simultaneously right here. And it is simply a question of our perception and our ability to really suspend our judgment, our beliefs, the structures that make us feel safe, and allow us to catapult into this next level of consciousness where we begin to see all of these different dimensions that are available to us. And we begin to step into our role as co-creators, right? So anyway, okay. Now, one of the things that what I'm going to do, I wanted to give you guys some exercises to develop the various kinds of clairs. And I think I'll go ahead and do that to a certain extent. But there is one major one that I would like to spend some time with. But one of the things that I think was important, one of the exercises that I came across, I find it, for those of you who are going to be joining us with the workshop, which will be in 2 weeks on meeting your guides, developing this ability between now and then, I think would be very, very useful. Now, specifically, this is on the question of clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is not my strong suit. However, I am able, if I try really hard, to see things. But one of the things that I would suggest that you do as a means of developing your clairvoyance is you can take any object, but probably the best thing to do is to get an object that's fairly interesting and just look at the object as closely as you possibly can. Just observe it. And then close your eyes and try to recall every little part of it. Now, this might seem like an artist's, exercise or like a memory exercise, but it's very interesting because if you're the same sensation that I get when I'm identifying a guide is the same one that I get when I'm recalling the little details on something like this, like the way that this roll, that there's this little texture here. And that is exactly the way that I am able, when I am doing energy work or when I'm doing channeling guides, it's that recall and that ability to go in and to be willing to think about the detail of things that will start to improve your capacity to perceive these things. Now, that would be on clairvoyance, so that one is a really fun one to do. On claircognizance, claircognizance was my main intuitive skill. And a lot of people who consider themselves to be very intelligent are claircognizants. And clear knowing, basically you just know stuff, right? You will look at something, you'll just get an immediate hit, and you'll just know it. Now, a lot of claircognizants think that their claircognizance is their mind, and that they have a brilliant mind and they must be really, 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 really smart. So that's true to a certain extent. But to give you an example, when I was a personal trainer, when I first started out, I was really good at immediately seeing what was wrong with people. I was better than people who had been in the business for 10 years plus. And at the time, I was like, I didn't really know why, but I was okay with it. So I just figured I must be super intelligent or had some special talent. And what I recognize now is that that was my claircognizance. Now, the problem with claircognizance is that we second guess ourselves all the time. And I always look at it as being the next day I'll get a claircognizant hangover, right? I'll be doing some kind of meditation. I'll have this like huge breakthrough. I'll like, oh, the heavens open up and everything in the universe makes sense. And then the next day I'm like, oh, I don't know, maybe not, right? That would be a claircognizant hangover. And so one of the best things that you can do if you are a claircognizant, or really if you're getting any hits at all, is start to write them down, right? And I have a little notebook that I call synchronicities. And so I write down things that just seem like this weird coincidence, and I can't really explain it any other way. And it's a really great idea to just keep track of these things. Keep track of your ideas, because a lot of times I will have some kind of flash breakthrough, right? And then monkey mind or logical brain, left brain comes in and says, oh no, this is not logical, don't go with that. And so I don't go with it. But then later on, I see I was absolutely correct. I should have followed my gut instinct. So it is very, very, very important to write things down. Now, this is also one of the ways that you can develop your intuition generally, and that is automatic writing. Now, automatic writing, the idea behind that is that you want to just kind of let your left brain go offline. And so what you can do is to set yourself up. It's a nice idea to get yourself in a comfortable place, maybe play some good music, just have some time to yourself. And then this would be correspondence with your higher self, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. But if you have a problem that you want to solve, you can write down the problem and then just start writing the solution. Now, when you first start, you might get all kinds of, left brain trying to logic it out. But after a while, if you just keep going, right, and keep going, some really extraordinary things can take place. This is actually something which, in The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's book, she talks about this as a practice that she does in the morning. She calls it morning pages. But I call it just chatting with my higher self. And once you get into the habit of doing this, right, and Julia Cameron actually advises doing it every single day, doing 3 pages and just writing and writing and writing. What you'll find is even if the first couple of days you're like, oh, I hate this. I don't like to write this. This is boring. Even if it's just that, just getting yourself to do it and just allowing whatever it is to come through, you will see some really, really extraordinary things. Now I see a whole lot of, I see a chat. So let me just check and see what is happening there. Right. So what I would like to leave you with before we go into any kinds of questions and answers is an exercise that I would love for all of you to do and to come back to the next workshops and to give me a report on this if you're willing to do that. So the big question that I get with developing intuition is, how do I know who's talking? Now, when you first start out, that can be super confusing because, for instance, you'll try to meditate, and so you'd be sitting there, and then you'll get some voice that says, oh, you're wasting your time. And then you'll get another voice that says that you're itchy. And then you're saying another voice, and there's just all these voices. And it can get super, super confusing. And so one of the things that I love my clients to do is to really begin to develop their clairsentience. Now, as I said near the beginning, once you start mastering your intuition, you're not really going to be able to tell the four apart. And you will get to the point where intuition will become a full body experience. So to get you there a little bit faster, I would really like to work on people's clairsentience and to give you an idea of how you can work with this by yourself and know that the information that you're getting is true. So bodies are very funny things because the popular culture that we have is that humans are minds, right? The good thing about us is our brains. And so then the idea becomes that we're just all here. We're in our head. And if you look at, for instance, the billionaires who have frozen their heads because they're going to put their heads on a different body, right, when a cure comes for their disease or some nonsense like this, their brains have been preserved. Well, the funny thing about that is that our souls are not in our brains. They're not all up here. And research recently has found that there are just as many neurons in your gut, and that your gut acts as a second brain in a way. Now, I would extend that even further, because what I know is that our consciousness is not just in our brain, not just in our gut, not just in every cell, but it is in our entire energy field. And so next week at the workshop, we're going to be talking about ways to work with your energy field, ways to protect yourself. So we'll be going into that a great deal more. But let it suffice to say today that your consciousness and your soul is in every part. And so one of the problems with our culture is that we were taught, especially in some of the more toxic forms of Christianity, that bodies are evil, that you have to mortify the flesh, that, it's indulgence to take good care of your body. And then, of course, there's the hideous dysmorphia that goes on because of the expectations, especially of women, but also of men, of our bodies to be perfect. And so we tend to think of our bodies as being the enemy. And that is a real problem when a whole lot of your consciousness is in your body and you're cutting yourself off and you're ignoring it. So the process of getting to know what your body is telling you is the development of intuition. And at first, it can be extremely uncomfortable because, for instance, when I was a personal trainer, I worked with middle-aged women in general, but I actually specialized in people who are morbidly obese, which means 100 or more pounds overweight. What I found across the board is that my morbidly obese women were clairsentients. So if you think about that, they are getting everything through their bodies. They're getting all of their intuitive information. And of course, because when we were little children, we weren't taught the information that we're receiving, they're just getting chaos through their bodies, right? They'll get bad feelings, they'll get good feelings, They'll be out in public, somebody else's crappy energy field will be up against them, and they'll feel it all in their bodies. And so they eat in order to insulate themselves from the feelings. It's very, very interesting stuff. So the ability to feel in the body can be very challenging, but there are tricks to get around this and to allow you to become fluent in the language of your body. So first thing I'm going to do, I think let's start with the good stuff. So first thing I would like you to do is just take a couple deep breaths into your body. And I want you to turn up the corners of your mouth. And I want you to think of a being that you love. Could be a puppy, could be a kitten, could be a baby, could be a human, could be any being. Think of a sunset. Think of a surprise that you got. Think of a time that somebody gave you a gift and it was just the perfect gift, and it let you know that they saw you and they knew you. So just kind of sit with that feeling. Where are you feeling it in your body? Where is that feeling? That elevated emotion. All right. Now, keeping your eyes closed, I would like you to think of something that you do not want in your life, something that you know is not serving you, something that is contrary to how you presently believe. Feel that in your body. It can't touch you. You're okay. But just feel where it is. We're just doing this for purposes of tuning into our body. So now go ahead and open your eyes. Now, I will tell you generally the way that people experience this is the excitement and the love will tend to be in your chest. If it's not, that's fine. It doesn't make any difference. It's just where it is in your energy system. This is half of the work is when I'm working with my clients, they really need permission to understand that their energy systems are unique, and maybe you're going to feel it differently. But so most people, it's in the heart. Some people, it might be up higher, high heart. That's good too. It's fine. And then the thing that you are rejecting, right, is usually somewhere down in the gut. Could be solar plexus, could be down a little bit further. And then I would say, go ahead and even take that one step further. If you were in a dangerous situation, like you're walking down the street and you see somebody at a distance and you know this person has no good in mind, where would you feel that? So does anybody want to share where they're feeling these sensations? Okay. Oh my goodness, all kinds of people got on when I wasn't looking. Okay, and Leslie is saying heart, gut, lower gut. Okay, so that's fairly standard. Is there anybody who's experiencing it slightly different? Here, I'll unmute you, babe. I can see your lips moving. Vaishnavi? Hey, wait, I unmuted you. There you go.
Okay. Sorry, I was late. I was out. I was traveling, so it took me a while to get home. But I feel it in like the middle of my spine, like in the back, so it'll go down in my spine. So when it's good, it's like in my shoulders and upper back.
Uh-huh.
And then when it's bad, it travels down my spine to like the middle back, my spine,
Cool.
and my feet.
Interesting.
I feel it in my feet both, and I feel it a little in my gut and my chest. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Have you worked on developing your intuition very much?
Not much. I've started trying Reiki, like learning Reiki, but I'm still trying to learn myself. So I feel like I'm kind of too logical, like too mind based. So I think, and that's kind of why I was interested in this, because I haven't, um, I get, I get feelings sometimes, but I'm not so connected to myself. So I think I need to build that.
Yeah, I'm a very mind dominant person as well. And
Yeah.
so and when I was talking about the whole question of weight and so on, that was totally me, trying to not feel things. And so it is, that's the key to it, is beginning to realize what's going on in your body. It's really, really cool once you start actually using your body as it becomes, of course it is a sensory organ, but it's a sensory organ in terms of the subtle frequencies. So,
Yeah.
but that's super fascinating that it's your spine. And were you just attuned to Reiki?
Mm, kind of like a few months ago. I started in the early summer.
Yes.
Somewhere, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Reiki is what started me being able to feel the sensations. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then as I worked on it more, now I feel it all over the place. But originally, it came crawling up here. So you're feeling it.
Oh,
That's cool.
yeah. Yeah. My spine is super sensitive, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious. Okay. And I saw some other comments. Wait a minute. Okay. Oh, in April, you have negative in your throat. Yeah, feeling like you want to vomit. That makes total sense. Nice, actually, considering what's going on. Is that always the case, April? That you always have the negative left gut to last chance? Not sure. Okay. That would just be something to monitor. And then Paul has good in his thighs. Okay. Oh, and gut is relaxed. And then, okay, so it's probably a tightness, right? Yes, makes total sense. Cool. And then it was nice to have you here, Leslie. We'll send out the recording. All right. Cool, you guys. So your assignment for next time, and if you're not able to come to the workshop, feel free to reach out to me too, is to just start playing with this. If you have, for instance, if you're trying to make a decision, try this technique. Now, in the initial case, okay, I'll give you, let me see if I can think of an example. Okay, my example would be, oh, I'm really going to put myself on the spot. I got invited to do a house sit in London in January. Okay, so I'm trying to decide if I'm going to do that or not. I'm totally putting myself on the spot because I haven't decided this at all. So when I think about going to London, I get an immediate tightening. Okay, now, if I wasn't so familiar with my energy system, I might say, oh, tightening, weird feeling in gut, not good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to breathe into it. And now it starts being turned into excitement, right? So I don't remember who said it, but someone said fear is excitement without breath. And I think that is true as far as it goes, right? If you're fearing taking a leap into doing something really magnificent, right? That is excitement without breath. Okay, but this exercise is important because what if I have that excitement feeling? Of course I do, because I've never been to London and it's really, really cool. But what if I breathe into it and I suddenly start feeling dread? That's when you start paying attention to it. Perhaps I'm having a premonition of something bad happening, right? And so you can start, let me just see, because I took some notes here because I knew I would forget part of that. Oh, so yeah. So the key thing would be is if it is your intuition and you breathe into it, it's going to feel expansive. It's going to feel big. It's going to feel maybe a little bit scary, right? But not like in a soul-crushing way. Whereas if you breathe into it and the emotion that comes up is fear, dread, something like this, then you know that that is a no, that your body is telling you absolutely not. But it's also a way of, if you were trying to make a decision on something, it's a way of telling whether it is your highest self that is making the decision or whether it's your logical brain that's coming in and trying to take over, because that will definitely happen. So what I would suggest you do over the next week or so is just start playing with this. Start feeling in your body where you are perceiving these various questions. So I kind of want to wrap it up there. I've been going on for quite some time, and I would love to get any feedback you guys have, or yes, we have been going for 1 hour, so my timing is pretty good. So I'm going to open it up for questions or comments or any kind of concerns you have. Yes, Lori, I'll unmute you.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everybody. Thank you for this. The thing that you were talking about with feeling into our bodies, there is a difference between the fear of the unknown and what's new, and that taking a jump that you don't want to take, and when it feels wrong. So there are times when, and the feeling is in the same place. For me, it's in a similar location. It's solar plexus and below.
Okay.
But there is, and I just figured this out like in January, and I've had the feeling come up several times in the past, and it just felt I thought it was fear. It felt like fear. It felt like really bad fear, and my whole body would hurt. It would be vibrating in pain because it felt so wrong. And my son and I bought a car off of Craigslist, and I started feeling that, right? And it was like, then there's the part of my head going, it's self-judgment because I've made bad decisions in the past, la, 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 la. And the car turned out to have several problems. So I basically should not have bought it, but there were several good points to the whole experience. What I learned was, this is just my body saying no. It's my body's way of saying no, which feels there's a subtle difference between that and how it feels when there's something I want to do that I'm scared to do. It feels different. There's a burning in one that's not there in the other. And so it can take a while. If for somebody that's new to this can take a while, and you may not be able to tell the difference for a while. It took me decades.
Absolutely. And that's the reason that I'm just stressing the whole question of be okay with however you're experiencing, because everybody's energy system is slightly different, right? I mean, we all have chakras, we all have this physical body, but you might experience it slightly differently. And the main thing is just to become fluent in your own system, right? And just start to look at it as being an exploration. It's a game, right?
Yes.
And, then you're not like, why aren't you seeing it a certain way? I remember when I first started doing this work, one of my clients said to me, she says, I feel like Charlie Brown when people talk about their guides. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, well, people are like, I saw a unicorn. I saw a St. Gabriel. I'm like, I got a rock. Like,
I get slugs.
you get Lori's an insect communicator. But however you're perceiving it, it's just the way that you perceive it. There's
Right.
no right or wrong, but that's the reason that it's important to begin to use your breath to start to identify, okay, is this my intuition saying, don't walk down that alley because there's somebody bad there, right? Or is it just my monkey mind going crazy because I'm about to do something really exciting, which is going to change my reality? And my left brain doesn't like that because it doesn't like things that are new.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the ability to shift your vibration, because every emotion is just a vibration. So if you have stuff going on, are you able to shift that to actually change the outcome?
Well, and that's where
that takes a while. I'm working on it.
Yes, I would say that I have only recently gotten to the point where I can shift that radio dial. All right, because I really used to feel like I was a victim of frequency. Like if there was a geomagnetic storm or if there's a full moon, I was like just thrashed, just totally thrashed. And I think it's a combination of, number one, systematically working on the trauma and the wounding and the Akashic record, past life, all that stuff. But it's also just familiarity with, because I think that there's the whole concept, the whole idea of frequency. It's just like what Hermine said, right? All of the dimensions are here. All of the frequencies are here.
It's all here. It's all here. And changing your perception changes what happens. It changes your world. Yeah.
Yeah. But it really, I do take exception with a lot of the law of attraction people, because they say, oh, just change your frequency, right? Like it's not that easy.
It's not that easy. They're leaving stuff out.
Yes.
Yeah. There's work involved.
But
it is amazing what can be done, but it's not your mind. Your mind is involved, but it is your body that's really running the show. Mm-hmm. Without our bodies, we have nothing to hold emotion. We have nothing to shift emotion. Our bodies carry water. And if you look at Dr. Emoto's experiments, you're shifting the water in your body with your thoughts. And that's not easy. It takes practice.
It takes practice, and it takes persistence.
Yes.
And I'd also say that it requires a certain lightness of touch, though, too, which is funny because so many people approach the spiritual work with like this heaviness and like, ooh,
they're too serious.
Right.
Joy is so important.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Lori. I appreciate your input. Okay, let's see. Well, and Anna's pointing out, the thing about, I work with a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs. I work with people whose profession is, spirituality. And so they tend to be like, really, their spirits are way out there, way ahead. And, right now, the big lesson that we're all learning is that, okay, we know how to be spiritual beings. That's what we were. That's where we came from. That's where we're going to. The point of this life, yes, we do need to remember that. There's no question about it. But we can't go out there. We came to this planet to have this human experience and have the experience in our bodies. But bodies are dense matter, right? They are not, the spirit's just energy. But with dense matter, it takes time for things to come through. And so you know, boy, I could just talk for ages about this whole question, but it is disrespecting the body that has gotten us into a great deal of trouble. But again, it is part of this old paradigm, right? Good versus evil, polarity, you know, and so on and so forth. So we can take that up at another time, because I could do an entire class series or possibly write a book about it, which I am considering doing. Okay. So you guys, this has been really awesome. I really appreciate your openness. Does anybody else have any questions? And let me just say that, you know, for those of you who are shy, you don't like coming on camera or whatever, please feel free to reach out, because I'm absolutely delighted to talk to you. And if you haven't friended me on Facebook, feel free to do that, because I'm very friendly. All right, so next week, we will have a workshop on energy. So in between now and then, just play with the frequencies in your body. See if you can maybe even get more complex with it, or just stick with the really, really basic things. Ask yourself questions, see what your body has to say to it, and just have fun with it, really. Let's see. You are so very welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you came, and I hope that you can make it next week. And again, go ahead and reach out if you have any questions at all. So in the meantime, I'm sending you much love. Bye now.